Good morning, everyone. I am so happy to be with you this morning. I've really missed being with you. I just can't wait until we get back together. You know, if you would leave a comment down below, then I'll know you were there and I can give you a thumbs up, and all the other teachers will know that you were there, and they can let you know how much they've missed you too. We'll be so glad when we can get back together. Well, today's lesson is kind of a continuation of the lesson that Miss Tina did for us a few weeks ago. If you remember, she told us about the apostles as they were with Jesus right before he ascended into heaven. Well, you know, sometimes it's kind of confusing about the difference between what's an apostle and what's a disciple, because we hear those a lot. So today, that's what we're going to study about. As you can see by our picture, is what is the difference between a disciple and an apostle? So who are disciples? We know that they learned from Jesus and they believed his teachings. We know that they obeyed his teachings. The Bible tells us that very clearly. We also know that what they learned, they lived. That means that they took the things that Jesus told them and they lived them every day. He told them to love one another, and they did. He told them that they needed to be baptized, and they were. He told them that they needed to treat each other as family, and they did, and many other things. They knew that those were the things that they needed to do. So those who did those things, they heard, they believed, they obeyed, they were followers or disciples of Christ. So if you're a follower of Christ, you are a disciple. They took all those things and they lived their lives, as I said, like he had commanded. And they also taught others. So who are the apostles? The apostles were those who were called out for a very special job. They were disciples, but they had a special job. If you remember right, Jesus he picked these 12 men himself. Peter, Andrew, James, John, Philip, Thomas, Matthew, Bartholomew, James, Simon, Thaddeus, and of course Judas. If you remember right, when we were all together, we sang a song about this. Can you sing it with me? I'd be really happy to know that while I'm singing, you're singing with me. Are you ready? Jesus called them one by one, Peter, Andrew, James, and John. Next came Philip, Thomas too, Matthew and Bartholomew, James, the one they call the less, Simon, also Thaddeus, the 12th apostle Judas made. Jesus was by him betrayed. These men had a special job. Jesus had personally picked them and called them out to help set up his church. It was a big job. It was a hard job. Jesus picked men who had very different talents. They had different strength, and probably they didn't all agree about things. But they did agree about two things. They loved God and they loved his Son. These 12 were his closest companions until his betrayal and his death and his resurrection. And the remaining 11, because we know that Judas had killed himself by then, saw him ascend into heaven. He was with them 40 days after his resurrection, before he ascended into heaven, and he sent them back to Jerusalem to wait. And we know that it was about another 10 days, because on the day of Pentecost, they received a special gift. Acts 1:21 through 26 tells us that one of the 12 chosen apostles, Peter, spoke to the whole group of disciples who were gathered together. There were approximately 120 of them. This included those 11 who had been called out for the special job, and the other followers or disciples. All were disciples, all of them, even the apostles. But those who were called out for a special job were called apostles, or they were, that is in fact what apostle means, is called out. And these 11 apostles were personally called out by Jesus. There were qualifications that you had to meet to be an apostle. The first one was, whoever it is, he had to be a companion of Jesus. And the apostles, during the whole time of Jesus' ministry, that is, from his baptism until his ascension, they had to all have been there. It was prophesied that they would be filling Judas's position. The second qualification is they had to have a track record of loyalty. That means that all the time they had to be a candidate for apostleship. They had to have been among the disciples who stayed, not those who deserted Jesus toward the end. But they remained faithful. We can look in John 6, verses 66 through 68 to see that that's what needed to happen. Another qualification of the apostle was an ability to testify. One of the important and special functions of the 12 was that they were eyewitnesses, and their testimony, based on their personal and constant accompanying with Jesus, could be proven as true. They saw it. They heard it. Well, Peter asked the Lord, he said, "You know the hearts of these men." And they had chosen 2 men from among the disciples, a man by the name of Joseph and a man by the name of Matthias. And Peter said, he prayed to the Lord. He says, "Lord, you know the hearts of these men. Tell us who to pick." So they all prayed, and they prayed together, and they prayed separately. And the Bible tells us that they then chose 2 men who met these qualifications. They had been with Jesus from the beginning to the end. They were eyewitnesses of all that he taught and all that he said, and they didn't run away. They stayed true to him. And because they prayed that the Lord would tell them who it was to pick, they were picked personally by Jesus also. Matthias was the one who became the 12th apostle in Judas' place. Now these same 12 were promised that on the day of Pentecost they would receive a gift that would help them and lead them and make it so that they could lead the early church and it would grow. And as you know, and we'll hear more about that, about how they received this gift. It was promised, you can see in chapter 1 of Acts. To be chosen as one of the apostles of Christ, we would have to make the same criteria that these men had to make in the first century. We would have had to have walked with Jesus. We would have had to have seen personally and heard him. We would have had to have walked with him till the end to see him ascend into heaven. Well, I don't know about you, but I am not 2,000 years old. I am his disciple, but I am not going to ever be able to be an apostle, not in the sense of these 12, because I didn't hear his voice. I didn't see him as he spoke. I didn't see him do the miracles. So I learned about them from other disciples. But I can't be an apostle, one of the apostles. you will learn that the word apostle called out, we could be called out for other things, but not for this special job. There were just those. Because I am a disciple, I follow the commandments of Jesus, and I follow him as my Lord and as my Savior. Well, you know, in the coming weeks, we're going to hear about another person that God chose for a special job. But we'll leave that until later. I hope that this kind of helps you to understand that we're all disciples, but not all of us were apostles, and only 13 men were the apostles. Judas was an apostle, even though he betrayed God and he gave up that right, and Matthias took his place. We will learn in the coming weeks that there are others that Jesus chose for special works. Thank you for being with me this morning and for singing with me. I hope that you sing it all day. Put a comment down so that we'll know that you're there and that the teachers can say hi to you